This is a very special top 10 video, because this Doctor has had some of the most best stories throughout the whole of Doctor Who era, and some of his stories I would class as absolute perfection. This is my all-time favourite Doctor, the top 10 Patrick Troughton stories. The reason why it's delayed so bad is because it was freaking impossible to do this top 10, and I finally narrowed it down by giving them more positives and negatives as I can, and I finally made a top 10 decision, and it was possibly the one I had to sat down and literally think just really hard. It was so difficult to do this top 10. But anyway, we're going to be kicking off at number 10. Number 10, we have The Mind Robber. Personally, I do really like this story, I do. So I've heard that some people do really like it, but some people class it as overrated because people do find Part 5 to be, well, rather silly and a bit clumsy. But I completely disagree. I think this is an absolute fantastic Patrick Troughton story. I love the beginning of it throughout the story. The acting's fun in it. And The Mind Robber, I do find it a really enjoyable Patrick Troughton story. I would definitely pick this one up to be your first Patrick Troughton story because it's really good, this one is, and I highly recommend this one as well. Fantastic Patrick Troughton story. Next we're moving on to number 9. So number 9 we have The Bonable Snowman, which has now been going up for me quite a lot now, but it was going to be like 14th place or something, but it has reached number 9. I love the Yeti stories. Every single story here, well, The Mind Robber is 9 out of 10, but all these here are straight 10s. I love these stories, all of them, so much, and I would give them all 10s, but I just had to narrow it down by preference, I did. But The Bonable Snowman has one of my all-time favourite monsters in it, in the Yeti. The characterization is good in this story. I find the characterization in the Web of Fear is better, but I've just finally decided that I prefer the Web of Fear because I prefer the Web of Fear location, the Web of Fear characterization, the Web of Fear Yetis, and the Web of Fear story. But yeah, we will see the Web of Fear soon. But The Bonable Snowman, I just love it a lot. Fantastic. I highly recommend this audio because we may not ever see this story ever again. Brilliant audio, brilliant story. Moving on to number 8, we have Tomb of the Cyberman, which was my introduction to the Patrick Troughton era, and I absolutely love this story to bits. Fantastic Cyberman story. Kid Peddler, I absolutely love his writing, and he made the Cybermen scary, which no other writer can write like Kid Peddler, and that's why he's always going to be my favourite writer ever, along with David Whittaker. Tomb of the Cyberman starts off fabulous with part 1 and 2. Part 3 and 4, people say it sometimes go a little downhill a little bit, but I personally love that just as much, and Tomb of the Cyberman I highly recommend to be in anyone's Doctor Who collection because it's just such a classic. A very good introduction to Season 5 of Doctor Who, one of the best seasons of all time. Moving on to number 7. We have The Web of Fear. Now some people would probably see it would have been a little bit higher, like 5, lower, 5 or 4. I just personally prefer these stories more. But The Web of Fear, absolutely fantastic story this one is. I love the Yeti. I think the Yeti's key story is this one. It's just that it has lots more improvements than The Bonable Snowman, in my own opinion, of course. Everyone has different opinions. I just think this story's got better location, better characterization, and a better storyline. But Web of Fear, I highly recommend this one because it was a lost story, but then it was finally recovered. I also would recommend The Enemy of the World as well, because that's another one which is lost in time, but finally revived to us. Web of Fear, highly recommended to be in anyone's collection. Moving on to number 6. 6, we have the War Games. Patrick Troughton's finale story. An absolute fantastic story this one is. I'm still struggling, but I don't know where I'd rate this, but I finally have made a decision. The War Games is a really good finale to a Doctor. It really felt like a finale story. A lot of people don't really like the length of this story, but I personally think it's fantastic. It's written fantastically, it's directed fantastically, the acting's fantastic, everything is absolute masterpiece with this story. And the War Games, I absolutely love this story to absolute bits. I would recommend all these. I would say recommend to all these coming up. Moving on to number 5. Number 5, we have The Invasion, with one of my favourite actors in this, who played as Mavic Chen in the Daleks' Master Plan, as well as Tobias Vaughan in The Invasion. I have forgot his name, but someone might credit me that. I love this 8-parter so much. I personally do not find it to be draggy at all. I can sit and watch this all the way through. Again, Kid Peddler is just fantastic, and this story was actually written by Derek Sherwin. Still very good from an idea from Kid Peddler. Amazing writing here, fantastic. I wouldn't call the Cyberman as scary as Kid Peddler with the Moon Base or the Tomb of the Cybermen, but Invasion, one of my favourites, definitely to my top 5. Moving on to number 4. Number 4, we have the Moon Base. Absolute love this story, and I really am happy that people are loving this story and call it just an absolute fantastic story, which really does make me happy, because this was a story which I've loved for a long time. This one is since 2001. This was, and I had it on audio, and I've loved it ever since. And the Moon Base, I love the Cyberman in this so much, and you need to get this. This is probably, without if I didn't have these 3 stories coming out, the Moon Base would probably be one of my all-time favorite stories ever. The Moon Base, I love this story so much. The Doctor's very dark in this story, has a very good quote in this. I would say please pick it up. I love it, and you would just love it just the same. Even though I do find the ending quite anticlimactic, but I don't think it would have ended in any other way. Moving on to number 3. Number 3, we have Evil of the Daleks, one of my all-time favourite Dalek stories here, and it would probably go into my top 10 as well. This is a perfection story, this one is. I've also done a reaction of this, and I also will be re-reviewing this story as well, because my video I did in that was more of a reaction, but I didn't really review it that well, so I'm going to re-review this story sometime soon. Evil of the Daleks, this is a lost story, or lost episode, which I definitely consider getting it on reconstruction or audio format, because it's fantastic. I personally do not find it to drag, even though it's a 7-parter. I thought it was going to drag, but I could not stop listening to this story. Evil of the Daleks is fantastic. I wouldn't go for the first edition because it goes on the eBay too high, it does, and it sells for like £40 to the bids. So I won't get the radio collection for the first edition. I'd rather get a bargain and go for the Lost TV Episodes 4 collection box set, because you are getting a bang for your buck then. So number 3 goes to the perfection Evil of the Daleks. Moving on to number 2. Number 2, we have Fury from the Deep. It's still like Evil of the Daleks. This is another fantastic story. Introduction to both Victoria Waterfield, I love it, and the departure of Victoria Waterfield, love it. I love this story so much because, again, the monsters really do remind me of the Krynoid, and the Krynoid are my all-time favourite monster. people might find, what? Really? But the crinoid are my all-time favourite monster, and they do remind me a lot like that. This is a really creepy story. It's said to be one of the most, or the most creepiest story, or most disturbing story through the Doctor Who era, because it does feature horrible suffocation in the story. If this story was recovered, I probably would pretty go insane, probably. But this is just such a classic story. Fury from the Deep, marvellous. But I think I know what everyone knows what's going to come out next. So at number 1, we have The Power of the Daleks. I think everyone knows what I'm going to say about this one. One of my all-time favourite stories ever. It's definitely in my top 10, and I love it. I love this Dalek story to bits. And if I seen an official trailer from BBC, I probably would even do a reaction video. This story, absolutely perfection. My all-time favourite Dalek story, my all-time favourite Lost Episode story, and it could even be my all-time favourite story ever. But I have not narrowed that down yet. So that was my top 10 Patrick Troughton stories. Hope you enjoyed this top 10. Probably my next top 10 may be William Hartnell. I don't know, but we'll have to see. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Have a fantastic day, everybody.